We have 299 registered voters in the hallway. We do have a quorum. The meeting will now come to order. Last night I went over the rules for town meeting. I am not going to repeat all of them again this evening, just the important ones. I want to remind you that the agenda before us is what is in the warrant. The motions are on the screen, and that's what we will be voting on. Whenever there is a required two-thirds vote, the vote may be declared by the moderator without a count and recorded as such by the clerk upon such declaration, provided, however, that if 7 or more voting members of town meeting doubt the vote, a count vote shall be taken. I want to remind you that town meeting does not come to an end until all agenda items on the warrant have been decided and acted upon. I will first ask for a motion, and then I will ask for a second, and then we will go to the proponent. The proponent will have 5 minutes to speak, and then I will ask for the vote from the Board of Selectmen and the vote and recommendation from the FinCom, and then it will be open to debate. If you wish to speak to an article, you must come to the microphone and state your name. And I want to once again remind you to please keep your remarks specifically to the motion that is before us. That will help to speed up town meeting. Now, no one should be speaking unless the moderator recognizes you, and that means that there should be almost silence in this hall because the only one I'm recognizing are the people at the microphones. So that should tell you that there shouldn't be any chit-chat going back and forth, and we shouldn't have the rude, inappropriate comments that we had last night if we all remember that that's what the rule is. Any person who persists in disorderly conduct will be warned by the moderator, and I do have a right to have them removed. Now, last night we took a vote that presenters of articles have 5 minutes to speak and all others will have 2 minutes. The moderator does regulate and preside over the meeting and decides all questions of order and makes a public declaration of the vote. If there is an amendment that someone wishes to make, you're welcome to make an amendment to the motion. It must be within the scope of the article. There will not be any amendments to the amendment. Our rule for reconsideration is still as it was last night. The photo policy for this town meeting is as it was last night. I have 2 people that have asked beforehand that are with the press. Photos may only be taken from the designated area where the press is sitting, and no photos may be taken during a vote. Please remember, if you need to leave the auditorium for any reason, to use the doorway on my left. That's to maintain the integrity of the vote so that we're going in and out, and you can be checked in and out to make sure you are a registered voter. If we do have an emergency, we will use the emergency exits, but please remember to come back in through the main door. Please turn off any cell phones. And there is a sign on the door that says no food or drink is allowed. We've been a little lenient with that. However, last night when the janitors were cleaning up, he picked up 2 bags of trash. So I would ask for your consideration. If you brought it in, take it out with you. Put it in the trash. Last night we were able to take action on 17 articles. So we will begin this evening, but before we begin, by virtue of our charter, I must call for a roll call of all department heads. Finance Committee, Board of Health, Chief Assessing Officer, Community Development, Conservation, Council on Aging, Data Processing, EMS, Inspectional Services, Municipal Maintenance, Planning, Police Department, Shellfish Harbor Master, Town Accountant, Town Clerk, Town Collector, Library Director, Water Pollution Control, School Department. As I said last night, we did complete and take action on 17 articles. I know it didn't seem like that, but we actually did. Our articles are taken by lottery, and it's been asked, how do we do that? Do we do that ahead of time? No, we don't. Once we complete an article, I turn to the clerk. She has a little cage up here with the numbers in it. I watch her pull it, and then I will announce what article we are on. Madam Clerk, if you would please pick article to start the meeting.
Point of information.
State your point.
Andrea Smith. Some of us are confused by a portion of Dr. Rabinovich's presentation last night. That confusion has created confusion about the total amount of impact of the proposed debt. Many of us will weigh an understanding of the total financial impact in our consideration of other articles such as spinning. Before moving forward, may we clear up the confusion over last night's presentation? It's only one or two questions.
Would you state your point of what your specific question would be?
I have basically two questions. First of all, one about the $575 debt exclusion for the feasibility study. The second one is to request, after the first one is answered, to request that somebody independent of the school committee who is a town official give us a per $1,000 of evaluation cost so that each one of us can individually figure how we would be impacted if all of the debt exclusions plus the override were passed. As it is, we have an estimate based upon a median house, and if we had a per $1,000 of evaluation, each one of us could figure out exactly how we would be impacted. But to get that figure, we need to have the question about the feasibility study answered.
I understand your second part of the question, and I certainly, Dr. Rabinovich did give that last evening, and if there is a question about that, I certainly want to clear that up. But I'm not sure how the feasibility study question plays into...
the feasibility...
I mean, it all comes within the same question that he explained, right, that overall those projects, and he gave a total. I can ask Dr. Rabinovich if he would like to just very briefly explain how those questions would impact. Is that what you're looking for?
What I'm looking for is the actual amount that we would be paying towards the feasibility study. I'm confused because we are borrowing, if we pass it, $575,000. But the state reimbursement will not come through until after the feasibility study is completed. So I would like to know if we're going to be taxed based upon the actual amount that is being borrowed, because it's being borrowed in advance of the study, or if we're going to be taxed upon the amount that we have voted to borrow minus what we're guessing the state is going to be reimbursing us. And if you can get the actual figure for what the $575,000 feasibility study will be costing, and that can be factored in with the other actual figures that he gave for the other debt exclusions and for the override, then we would be able to get an accurate per $1,000 cost.
Okay.
Do you follow me?
I do follow you. We are not on, I think what we can do is when we get to those articles, that Dr. Rabinovich will have those slides back up, and he would be able to address it at that time.
Well, the only thing is the feasibility study is just one, and the article is going to be taken in all kinds of scattered order, so that discussing the total for, say, school buses, we can't have a total for what the entire cost is going to be in our mind, nor can we have, if we haven't discussed the feasibility, nor can we if we're discussing the spinning. and the potential cost of Spinney, and we want to weigh in how we're going to be impacted by the cost of passing all of the debt exclusions plus the override. We won't be able to do that if we don't have that figure.
Okay. I would ask if Dr. Rabinovich would be willing to just address that specific, what the cost of the 5, if this body chose to act on those, what the impact, overall impact would be, and keep it to the brief reply to that specific question.
And may I stay near the microphone in case I need to ask him?
Well, I think you've asked your question, and I think he can answer it. Like I said, we're not on those articles, and I'm sure that he will be giving further explanations, and you can ask at that time. Dr. Rabinovich?
May we have, after he answers that, the cost per thousand?
I believe he'll try to give you that. I believe that was in this slide.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, on the feasibility study, that was $575,000. What was calculated was 40% of that is what we would be paying off, because 60% of it would be reimbursed by the Mass School Building Authority. As far as building, I may ask Mr. Foster to speak on this, but the normal, when we've dealt with the Mass School Building Authority, you only take the loan on what you need. So if the first part of it, let's say, is $100,000, that is all that is bonded at that particular time. Once that is, the work is done and we have a bill for it, we can then submit for reimbursement for 60% of that, and then go out if we need more money. So during the project, we are getting reimbursed and borrowing at the same time. The maximum amount of the borrowing should be 40% of that $575,000 to do that project. John can give us the per cost per thousand on the tax rate if you would ask him.
Mr. Foster, would you care to answer that?
I'll try to answer the question. The $575,000 amount, it depends what I need to do to borrow this money. Right now we're contemplating a 5-year term on these loans. $575,000 divided by the town's total valuation of $3,368,858,000.
He can't hear you.
Can't hear that.
You need to speak real close to the microphone.
Okay. Can you hear me better? Okay. If you take the $575,000 and divide it by the town's total valuation of $3,368,858,000, it would give you a tax rate, if this were to be paid off in 1 year, that $575,000 would be 17 cents, a 17-cent increase on the tax rate. What we anticipate doing, if we need to borrow this money, we'll probably be borrowing this over a 5-year term. That's what we've discussed. So you could break that over the 5 years. It would include all debt and interest. The debt exclusion would be the debt and the interest associated with the loan. So it depends on the loan rate at that time. Right now we're probably around 2%, 2.5%. And as that money comes in from the MSBA, we need to apply that as it comes back in. It's how we handle the middle school loan. As the money came back in, as we received the reimbursement, it was applied toward that loan. So you're not allowed to exclude. Once you start receiving the money, you have to subtract that out of your debt exclusion. So it depends on what we need to do. If we need to borrow the $575,000 to get the reimbursement, as the money comes in, it gets applied to the outstanding loan to pay that off. So if $200,000 comes in, we have $300,000 left to pay. The exclusion would be $100,000.
Madam Moderator, if I may, my question about the total cost was for all of the debt exclusions plus the override on a per $1,000 evaluation basis.
Do we have that?
Claire, excuse me. I have the numbers.
I'm sorry.
I have the numbers, if you want them.
Point of order, Madam Moderator.
We did that this morning.
Mr. Silvio, state your point.
Madam Moderator, I appreciate all this discussion, and I'm sure that once these articles come up, that we can have more extensive and lengthy discussion from either Dr. Rabinovich or Mr. Foster or whomever. But right now, what we're doing is we are going against the lottery system. Because in essence, what we're doing is we're discussing an article that hasn't even been pulled yet, or a group of articles that have not even been pulled yet. So I contend that at this point in time, this discussion is inappropriate because we haven't even got an article on the floor to even discuss. So why, in fact, are we discussing the override articles? So what I'm saying to you, Madam Moderator, is this is defying your own rulings.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvia, and I appreciate that, and I agree with you. At the same token, I know that we have a lot of new people here this evening, and I wanted to try to clear up. I know, you want to have the whole picture, but I will agree with Mr. Sylvia, and I think Dr. Rabinovich answered it, and I think I've answered it, Mrs. Smith, that when we get to those articles, Dr. Rabinovich or the school committee will have a dollar figure for you as to what it would cost on each article. So, Madam Clerk, if we could pull the next article, please.
Madam Moderator, this is Deputy Moderator. We have a couple of registers in here now.
If you would please send them to the auditorium, we have plenty of room for them up here.
Very well.
Thank you. Article 44 is before us. Okay, Article 44 is regards an article dealing with nitrogen. Now, this has come before us before, and as moderator, even though I have gotten an opinion from ethics that I do not need to step aside, morally, because I have a husband who is in the septic business, I felt the necessity that I should not participate in the discussion of this article. And because I did that previously, I am going to do that again. So I'm going to ask the deputy moderator to come up and take this article, and I will go down to the overflow. Mr. Ashley, if you please would come and take Article 44, please.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Can I have a motion on Article 44, please?
Article 44. I move that the town vote to approve the article as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Do I hear a second on that
Second.
motion? To speak to the article? Yes, sir.
Dan Bezinet, Precinct 4. There weren't enough warrants for everybody in the hall last night. There were none out there this evening. Is there any way that we can post that up on the screen?
Can I have a tech person answer that question? Unfortunately, we do not have the actual warrant article to put on the screen right now.
Okay. All right. All right.
With that in mind, can I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen? Yes, we did have a motion and a second.
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 1-0.
Thank you. And the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted 0, favorable 7-1.
Thank you. Mr. Persevich, would you like to speak to the article?
Good evening, Eddie Pasevich, Precinct 1. I'm chairman of the Clean Water Committee, and this is the article that we introduced. I believe we should have it up on the screen in a moment. But we have a nitrogen problem in Wareham. The Wareham rivers, major river systems in Wareham have been declared impaired by both the state and the federal government, and this is due to nitrogen loading. We're losing eelgrass, loss of fish and shellfish spawning areas, possible fish kills, possible green slime, seaweed, and odors on our beaches. Nitrogen pollution in Wareham has been studied for more than 20 years. The Massachusetts Estuaries Project draft report for the Wareham River estuary has scientifically established that septic systems are the largest source of nitrogen in the Wareham River estuary. The state of Massachusetts recognizes two ways of reducing nitrogen from septic systems: sewering and nitrogen-reducing septic systems. There are no others. The planned sewering in the town of Wareham, when completed, will not be enough to achieve the proposed nitrogen pollution goals in the TMDL. That's the total maximum daily load of nitrogen for the Wareham River estuary. Title V has minimal effect on reducing nitrogen loading. This proposed bylaw has never been before the Wareham town meeting. I'll repeat that. Contrary to what the warrant says, this proposed bylaw has never been before the Wareham town meeting. The proposed bylaw removes 2/3 of the nitrogen loading from new construction septic systems. This does not include failed systems. It does not include additions or increased septic flow. The proposed bylaw uses a nitrogen discharge standard of 12 parts per million, the same standard which is currently being used in certain areas by the town of Falmouth. Limiting nitrogen loading from new construction. Without this bylaw, new construction would make our nitrogen pollution problem worse, requiring more homes to be sewered. This bylaw is fully supported by the Buzzards Bay Coalition. The Board of Health has been working on a similar regulation for over 18 months and has not achieved any success. Implementing this bylaw ensures that any changes to the bylaw must be approved by town meeting. It was previously mentioned at a meeting I attended with the Board of Health that it was a good idea to sewer the whole town. A great idea, except for one problem. A new treatment plant will cost $55+ million. Then add individual betterments to that cost. I have no idea how the residents of Wareham would pay this huge debt. The cost of implementation of this bylaw, zero cost to the current residents of Wareham. Zero. It will cost anyone sitting in this room nothing. The fairness issue. Every new residential Title V septic system installed negates the gains in nitrogen removal we have achieved through sewering. In other words, a resident who spent approximately $20,000 on sewer wasted that money because the nitrogen removed by the sewering was added back to the water by new construction. The residents of Wareham are subsidizing the developers in Wareham. The developers put in a Title V and leave it up to us to clean up their nitrogen loading by paying for sewing of additional homes. The implementation of this bylaw will not cost the residents of Wareham a dime. I repeat that, it will not cost you a dime. It will also ensure that everyone is paying their fair share to resolve the nitrogen pollution problems in Wareham. Everyone paying the fair share to clean up this nitrogen pollution. I urge you to vote in favor of this bylaw. Thank you.
Now that we have had the Board of Selectmen's vote and the Finance Committee vote, we have placed the printed article that was in your warrant on the screen. The motion was as printed in the warrant. I will now open for debate. Speaker to my left.
Yeah, I'm speaking as a citizen, Frank D. Felice. I'm also the chairman of the Board of Health. There's some fallacies that have been brought forth to you just now. I want to start off with one of them, is about the town of Falmouth. I have talked to the Board of Health in Falmouth a number of times. There is no bylaw given by the Board of Health in Falmouth that touches anything on the nitrogen reducing. That bylaw is with the planning board. I called the planning board and I talked to the planner. They said yes, they're thinking of more in only a certain area in the town. But they said they're going to throw it out because they don't want to stunt any growth in the town. Now, these systems that he's talking about that are going to be going in are very expensive systems. They run anywhere from $20,000 plus the tank and the system. So you're looking at $30,000 or more for these systems. I got to just take a look here. Well, I might as well go on all the alternative systems. The state has said to us, take it easy. Don't move fast on this. 19 parts are all that the state has out there allowing right now. And they said these systems are finicky too, that they don't really work to the best, and they're still trying to get them to tweak them. So you're getting systems out there that not only once you have to put them out there, you have to have a maintenance contract, they have to be serviced. You're talking upwards of $30,000 plus. So it really is an impact on the people that are going to be having to put it in. And you're talking about putting it on new growth in the town.
Can you wrap this up, please, sir?
Pardon?
Can you wrap it up, please, sir?
I didn't understand what you said.
Can you wrap this up, please, sir?
Okay. Well, this will be harmful to the town by allowing something like this to go forth. It's too much money. It's a problem. And the town cannot afford, the citizens can't afford something like this. Thank you.
Hey, no clapping. Speaker on my right. As I was. Speaker on my left.
Brock Tusi, 290 Glen Charlie Road. I was on the Nitrogen Loading Committee that met down at Mass Maritime 2 winters ago. You won't see my name anyplace because I wouldn't sign off on the final plan. Many of the Cranberry Growers and septic people signed off just to get it over with. I spoke against this at the meeting, the first meeting. I have documented proof that there isn't a nitrogen problem coming from septic systems. My former campground has been there for 50 years, right on the edge of Agawam River, and I test for nitrogen once a year. Now I test monthly for the last 2 years just to make this point. When I brought this up at the meeting, after the first meeting, I got a phone call from the Board of Health saying DEP wanted to see me. It had been brought to their attention that I was polluting Agawam River with nitrogen. I met with DEP as I was asked, showed them my documentation. I haven't heard from them since. It was told to us at that very first meeting, Wareham River was killed by the treatment plant. The first treatment plant that went in, and I'm sure at a meeting like this we were told we had to have it. It was going to save everything. The treatment plant killed the river. That should be in the minutes of that first meeting. Then we had to add to the treatment plant, I think costing the taxpayers a lot of money. The point I'm trying to make is make sure of what you're hearing. I think this needs more time. The proponent of the article, I think it means well, but the science you're speaking of is one scientist. It's his idea, and the problem with it is he doesn't believe in attenuation. He says that the soil does not clean out the nitrogen. He's about the only person in the environmental community in this country that doesn't believe in attenuation of all kinds of environmental problems. So you talk about science, yeah, it's there, but it's one person. The state hasn't signed off on this. Everyone's still researching it. So I could go on forever, but I know this kind of a thing is costing a lot of people a lot of heartache and a lot of money, and it's not time yet because we really don't know what we're getting. We put in 2 treatment plants now. We put in a treatment plant and repaired it on the same kind of a proposal. Let's not make the same mistake again. There are other ways to make the town pay their fair share. I agree there, but this isn't the way to do it. Thank you.
Hey, stop clapping.
My name is Houston, Precinct 6, and I have spoken to a civil engineer to look at my property.
But the speaker on the right was to the microphone before you were?
Oh, I'm sorry. Someone else was speaking?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I will recognize you after.
I didn't
Speaker
know.
on my right.
Thank you. Teresa Tello, Precinct 3. Just a few things about these systems. This probably is the best and fairest bylaw that has come before town meeting, to include just new construction. Right now, we have these systems in this town. And if you've ever been to a Board of Health meeting, they grant multiple waivers for people to use these systems. Engineers and developers come up in front of the board and present these systems to build on smaller, unusable pieces of property that otherwise would not be able to build upon because these engineers and developers are stating to the Board of Health that they're getting a better system by putting these IA systems in place. You can check out anything. Go to a Board of Health meeting. 5 years ago, I sat through many, and at least 4 waivers per system were being granted so somebody could build on a small piece of property, close to wetlands, close to resources. The problem is they don't want the rules to follow. They want to be able to do whatever they want. We need something like this in place so there are rules to follow, so you can't build on a wetland, so you can't build closer to somebody's property line, so you can't build closer to a resource area. These systems don't work if they're not installed properly, if they're not inspected properly. That is also in here. This bylaw will ensure that that is being done. Right now, it's not. Some of these systems have been in this town for 10 years. Can anybody from the Board of Health tell us where they're located and if they are being monitored yearly And that's through the DEP. The DEP requires
Can you
them
wrap
to be
this up,
monitored
please, when
yearly.
you get a chance?
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience. Speaker on my left.
Yes, I just feel this is a hardship.
Can you please identify yourself,
Yes,
please?
Houston, Precinct 6. I've
Houston,
spoken Precinct 6. Yes.
Houston who?
That's Joanne Houston. I have a small cottage, an old cottage that I've maintained on an acre of land. The only value is the land. And I've spoken to a civil engineer. He looked at my land and this hill it's on, and he told me it would cost minimum $40,000 plus $2,000 a year in maintenance and fees. Now he's in the business, he should know. It's a burden to me to consider selling and placing this on me. This is the only, equity I have. If I had a sewer line coming into town, I'd be happy to contribute my $20,000 to participate in the fair plan. But this is way too aggressive. I'm asking for some leniency. This is just too aggressive. Please take it slower, more reasonably. That's about it. Thank you.
You, speaker on my right, Mr. Larry.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, to the proponent, you made the statement that it's going to cost $0 to all the taxpayers. But well, go ahead and answer that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. So there's no enforcement at all. There's no one going to be the Board of Health. Who's going to enforce this? And is there no additional cost for the people that are going to do the enforcement?
To answer the question.
To answer the question through you. If you notice in the bylaw, there's a $50 fee which can be used to contract out the monitoring. And the discussion is that it will be contracted out, and the monitoring will take place by the Buzzards Bay County system that's already has this in effect, and they will just monitor all of the systems here. The only additional requirement is that if a system is failing, that the local Board of Health will have to go out and check it, which will be minimal.
So, one more time. So the Board of Health, other than if something's failing, has no involvement in this at all?
If they contract it out, no.
So if they contract it out, there's cost?
It's paid by the operators at the $50 fee.
Okay. Thank you.
Speaker on my left. He doesn't have any more time. That's why I recognized you. If you would like to ask the body for more time, he may.
Well, I'd like to answer some of the questions that have been brought up by the speaker and the previous speaker. So, yeah, I would like to have a couple minutes to answer some of the questions that were brought forth that I don't believe they definitely need answers to.
All in favor of giving Mr. Felice more time, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Now,
you have more time.
Now, are you saying that the Board of Health is going to have nothing to do with these alternative systems?
No. I said the monitoring of the systems would be the ability to contract it out, and that's in the bylaw.
Well, who's going to make sure that it gets done properly? Who's going to make sure that the maintenance contracts are looked over and they get properly checked out?
When the permit is, through you, Mr. Moderator, when the permit is issued, all of that has to be reviewed by the Board of Health.
I'm talking about when the system goes to work, when it's out there. It absolutely is taken over by the Board of Health. No question about it, period. The Board of Health will have to run this system, and that's going to cost money. And we're going to have another person put on if these start to be getting too many, because it's going to be a contract and it has to be looked into, and the Board of Health will have to take a look at it. Now, The previous speaker, the lady, I don't know who, was talking about we got these alternative systems and they're everywhere out there. Well, if they're all the way out there now, why are we don't know where they're at, why do we want to put more out there? You know, it just doesn't make any sense if that's what she's saying. And I don't know anywhere where we're allowing these systems to go on small lots. Not since I've been there or the members that are on there right now. Anyhow, I'm just saying that this is not going to be good for the town. This is a costly thing. It needs to be looked at. The DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, told us to move slowly with this. Don't jump into something like this, and especially at 12 parts per million. There's no system that can get that.
Ms. Moderator, if I may have some time to rebut some of those issues.
He has no time. All in favor of giving Mr. Pasevich 1 minute more time, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Motion fails. Speaker on my left.
Yeah, hi, my name is Mark from Precinct 6. I moved up to this area and bought a home, and before I moved up here, I was down in Florida, and I have nothing to do with the pro or the con on this, but now I'm a homeowner. I'm a builder down there without a license. I used a license to do it, but I did work with the county. I'm not seeing a nitrogen level. I'm not seeing any facts. I've read through everything that I've heard, but I think I'm just hearing like global warming or something like that, you know. I think I need, as a homeowner, more facts before I could vote yay or nay. But right now, you know, I'm befuddled. And this lady Joanne back here, and anybody like this lady Joanne back there, that doesn't have any money and need to redo their system and then have it redone.
Can we not talk about individual people?
Pardon me?
Can we not talk about individual people?
You don't want me to talk about Joanne?
No.
I'm old and deaf, but he said. Okay, I won't. But anyway, that's my basic point without taking up too much time. Thanks.
Speaker on my right.
Thank you, Sandy Slavin, Precinct 3. I have a couple questions and then I have a comment. Under new construction, a construction of a new building for which an occupancy permit is required, can that be defined for me? Is that just a home? Is it an apartment? I'd like to have that answered, please, if that can be defined for me.
To answer the question? Anybody?
To answer the question through you, Mr. Moderator, new construction would be just that, a new building. It would not include expansions because you don't need an occupancy permit for an expansion or an addition. It would be a new building, whether it's residential or commercial, would require this type of a system.
Thank you. Follow on that. For a residential or commercial, how big of a system would someone need if they're putting in Westfield, a Walmart, who may not be able to hook to our system, our sewer system? I'd just like to know how big of a 12 parts per million system do they need to build if they're a business coming into town?
To speak to the question.
To answer the question through you, Mr. Moderator, the size depends upon the flow. These systems can go from an individual home to a system as big as Westfield to handle the whole thing. They just build it bigger to handle it. And as the system gets bigger, the amount of nitrogen comes down, so the 12 parts per million wouldn't even be a consideration. These larger systems get anywhere from 3 to 5 parts per million.
Thank you, Mr. Pasevich.
Thank you. Now I have my comment. This bylaw is to be controlled and monitored by the Board of Health, if I understand. I believe they are the ones that should write their own bylaws that they are going to be required to enforce. Thank you.
Speaker on my right. Yes, it is you.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, We've been discussing
Can you please
bylaws.
identify yourself for the record?
Jane Donahue, I apologize. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking about this type of keep your water clean issue for at least 7 years now. We've moderated it, we've changed it around. It either hasn't been enough, it's been too much. This is just restricted to new construction. Now, I would think that based on some of what we've been talking about in the last several years, that we may not be all that interested in having a whole lot of brand new houses in our community. Look around where you live. Look at all the houses that are being constructed. Look at the crowding. What does that do for the rest of our town? It costs us $1.75 for every dollar that we get in revenue for every new home because of the expenses that it creates by bringing more children into the school system, bringing more police services and those kinds of things. We've talked about this before. Clean water is something that's going to be here for all the ages. There are a lot of people here tonight who haven't heard some of these arguments before. I really beg you to think about this with an open mind. This is not going to impact your house that you live in. It's for new construction. It was designed this way because of some of the objections that there were to these bylaws in the past. I sat through 4 years of differing scientific studies. I don't need to sit through 4 years of different scientific studies. Go to the beach in your neighborhood. Put your feet in the muck. See if it looks a little bit better now than it did before. See if it smells so bad in August as it used to smell. We're starting to get our waterways back. We have a lot more impact in our waterways because we are downstream. And people say, oh, wait till the people upstream do something about it. Why should we have to pay for it? Well, because we're the ones who live on the water. And that's why we live here, and we love it, and we'd like to see it preserved for our children. Earth Day just passed. I know a lot of you probably saw some of the Earth Day things on TV. Think about our future. Thank you.
Speaker on my left.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Bill Heaney, Precinct 1. I move the question.
We have a motion to move the question, and we have a second. It requires a 2/3 vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Nay. The question is moved. We will now have a vote on Article 44, as printed in your warrant and was posted on the screen a few minutes ago. It requires a majority vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. No. The motion fails. Do you have 7 people to rise with you? Tellers, please take your positions. All in favor, please raise your card. Have the tellers completed their count? No. Can I have Section 1, please?
Section 1, 21.
21. Section 2.
28.
28. Section 3.
Section 3, 41, 41.
41. Section 4.
8.
8. That's all the sections, right? We're in the middle of a vote. There were no registered voters in the overflow at this time. I have 98 for. All those opposed, please raise your cards. Just a reminder to the tellers, do not count blue cards. Our color tonight is pink.
Candy for him? I like it on the fire. Why don't you have some Swedish fish if you want? Bonnie was so mad last night. I knew she would be. Doing the Elks, she was so mad last night. He was ripping. Did your wife get off okay this morning?
Can I have section 1, please?
Section 1, 51, 51.
Section 2?
42.
42. Section 3?
Section 3, 115.
Section 4?
85, 85.
$293. It is defeated by a two-third count vote.
Mr. Moderator, point of order.
State your point.
A motion to reconsider, please.
State your grounds.
My grounds is a lot of people will leave at the end of the night and somebody will bring this back. So we'd like whoever denied this, I urge you to accept the motion and we not to consider it, because if you leave, they will reopen it when you leave, and then they'll pass it while you go home.
I'm sorry, sir, but it cannot be reconsidered unless there was felonious action taken, if there was legal problems.
Explain it. What's the legal? Explain. I don't understand. Of course, I have the right to reconsider.
No, if the rules are, it can be taken in the first night of town meeting, and that it has to be if informed action was taken. If it violated a problem, had a legal problem, or other valid ground for why we would need to reconsider it.
Can you ask Tom?
Point of information, please. Point of order. Point of order.
unless this gentleman voted against this, he cannot speak. He has to even ask for a reconsideration. He has to be in the outcome, which was against. He has to have voted in that favor. Could you check that, moderator, please?
He did vote. I'm pretty sure that he voted on the correct point, but I was already going to deny it anyway. He just asked.
Okay, so you can't grant reconsideration to anybody. That's what you're saying, right?
Not right. Not unless there is valid cause for me to say, okay, let's reconsider this article.
Okay, can you ask town council? He's next to you.
I don't have to yield to town council, but I will yield to town council.
You don't have an answer for me.
Mr. Moderator, through you to the previous speaker, under Chapter 39, Section 15, the moderator determines the rules of order and procedure for the meeting. My recollection of the statement of the rules in yesterday's session was that reconsideration would not be allowed unless there was a procedural error, a legal error, or there was some new information.
All right. Well, I urge everybody who vote against to stay here.
There is no vote. I will now recess until Madam Smith can get down the hallway for our next article. Just so you guys know to flip in your manual, the next article will be Article 10, 1-0.
Mr. McDonald, you're up. Oh. Why did you step out of it? Oh, okay. You still want freedom.
I think we have a height problem here. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Just to be clear, we did have one voter in the overflow room who didn't realize that she needed to be in here if she wanted to vote. She's working on a project, and she will be coming here to act on other articles and vote in a little while. Next article. Article number 10. May I have a motion on Article number 10?
Madam Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate $6,520,304 from the Water Pollution Control Enterprise Fund, salary wages $751,384, expenditures includes debt $5,255,920 with reflected of $513,000 revenue offset in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 53F and a half of Massachusetts General Law to defray the operating and capital expenses of the Water Pollution Control Enterprise Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2012 and ending June 30th, 2013.
Do I have a second? To speak to the article? Do you want to take it? Fine.
Madam Moderator, through you to the body, it's the article for the Water Pollution Control Facility. You'll see this year that that there is a $513,000 revenue offset This is the first year that you will see it represented as that. The reason that we are doing that is to make sure that we are within the regulations of the Department of Revenue, to make sure that they will count that money towards our local funds. If we did not put it in that way, it would actually, we would not be able to consider those funds. So that would be the first year of this change.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 3-0-0.
May I have the vote of the Finance Committee and the recommendation?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 6-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything to be said on Article 10? Seeing no one standing, we will now take a vote on Article 10. It requires a majority vote. We are voting to move to appropriate $6,520,304 from the Water Pollution Control Enterprise Fund, including salary and wages of $751,384, expenditures including debt of $5,255,920, with a reflected $513,000 revenue offset. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries by unanimous. Madam Clerk. Article 20. Article 20, may I have a motion?
Madam Moderator, I move that $341,000 is appropriated for funding the purchase of instructional materials for use in Wareham public school classrooms, including but not limited to textbooks and technology, and including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, that to meet this appropriation, the Treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow $341,000 under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7(9), 728, and 729, or any other enabling authority that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to contract for and expend any federal or state aid available for the project, and that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out this project, provided, however, that this vote shall not take effect until the town votes to exempt from the limitation on total taxes imposed by General Ledger Chapter 59, Section 21C, Proposition 2.5, amounts required to pay the principal of and interest on the borrowing authorized by the vote.
Do I have a second? I have a second. To speak to the article? Am I right?
Madam Moderator, the reason that this is necessary in order to reduce our budget, as we were asked to do by the Finance Committee, we took out all textbooks and technology and put them into this debt exclusion. And this is for $260,000 for textbooks and $81,000 for technology. The textbooks are required by the new Mass Core, and we have to replace the textbooks in the math department at the high school and literacy at the elementary school. And in order to have computers available to our elementary school teachers so that they can participate on Power School, so that elementary parents can have access to assignments online, we need to replace computers at the elementary for the teachers. And that's why we are before you today for this sum of money, and this is the only way that we will be able to get these materials is through this method.
Thank you. May I have a vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 0-3-0.
May I have a vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The vote of the Finance Committee was 4-3-0.
Thank you. Before we get into debate, I just want to make very clear, because I think there is a bit of confusion when it comes to these articles that are before you. Just so that you understand that the only people who can put this before the voters on a town ballot are the Board of Selectmen. We are not here tonight. We don't have the authority to either vote in favor or not in favor of putting this on the ballot. That only can be done by the Board of Selectmen. What this article is, it is a contingency giving the town treasurer authorization to borrow if the selectmen decide that they would like to move forward and put this question on the ballot. And if the voters go out and take a vote and approve it, then there has to be a mechanism by which the town can fund that. So our job here tonight is only to authorize the treasurer and give him permission that should this go to the ballot and pass, he would have authorization to borrow. So when we talk about this evening, this is what we're debating. Are we willing to give the treasurer the authorization contingent on a ballot question? So that's what's before us this evening. On my right?
Eddie Pasevich, Precinct 1. Madam Moderator, as you said, confusion, and I'm trying to understand this, and if I've got it wrong, please let me know. But the current budget for this, what we're voting on now, is $250,000 less than the previous budget, I believe. And if you take that $250,000 that was cut out of the budget, plus add in the 7.1% increase, that's what all of these articles equal to as far as the 2.5% override and the 4 debt exclusions.
Correct. No? No. Mr. Rabinovich, to answer that question.
The difference between last year's funding and what we felt was needed to run the school system was $1,800,000. What we were funded was $250,000 below last year, which gave us a deficit of $2 million from what we felt we needed. This article makes up $341,000 of that, brings us above last year's funding by approximately $90,000.
Thank you.
Madam Moderator, that didn't answer the question. I'm trying to get a picture of this entire operation. I understand this is just the one article, but all of the articles, all the debt exclusion, and all of the Proposition 2.5 override, that equals the $2 million, which would include the $250,000 plus the 7.1% increase. Yes or no?
To answer the question, Mr. Heath, do you rise to answer? No? To answer the question?
The answer is no.
The answer is no. Okay. Is there anyone who can answer the question? Mr. Sweat?
As the superintendent said, we started about $1.8 million above, sorry, Jeff Sweat, Cremisa Road, District 1. We started about $1.8 million. Then we went $250,000 below. There are three of the debt exclusions are unrelated to the operating budget. That's the first and most important thing to understand when you're doing the numbers in your head. The bus replacement debt exclusion, the Minot Forest feasibility study debt exclusion, those two have nothing to do with the operating budget. The override of $780,000 is part of the operating budget, and this textbook and technology is part of the operating budget. And the other debt exclusion for the high school roof is also not part of the operating budget. So think of it this way. There are two things to consider that would replace $1.8 million worth of operating budget that we didn't get funded. One thing is $780,000 worth of an override,
And this is the second thing, 341,000. The two combined make up about half of what we were hoping to get. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, I'll be glad to keep answering questions.
Thank you.
Does that work, Ed? It doesn't answer your question?
I'm sorry, but the debt exclusion totals $1,386,000, and the 2.5 override totals $780,000, which is a little bit over the $2 million that we're trying to replace.
No.
No.
780 plus 341.
In the microphone, Mr. Sweat, please, so we all can hear.
780,000 plus 341,000. By my math, that's about 1.2 million. That's of the 1.8 or so. I guess when I said half, it was a little more than half. Of the, excuse me? Of the 1.8 million, the debt exclusion and the override covers about 1.2 of the 1.8 that we were initially trying to get. It's the best I can do, folks. I'm not sure what else I can tell you.
Thank you. On my left?
Stanley Andrews, Cranberry Highway. We're asking for $341,000 this year. Is this solving our problem? What's going to happen next year? We're going to need $341,000 again, $341,000 the next year. The next year, this could go on forever. I would like to have the problem solved. And then I'd give you the 341 if the 341 is going to solve the problem. But that's not going to solve our problem. All we're doing is kicking the can down the road.
Thank you. Mr. Heath?
First, let me address the educational materials, if I may, because I had a little input to this as well. These are two new mandated curriculums. One is Math High School, and the other is elementary literacy. Normally, textbooks are part of the budget on a replacement basis. These are not replacement books. These are new programs. Computers in the past, they pretty much tried to include them in the operating budget. However, computers by many, many towns and cities are handled as a group, just as in a business. Instead of handling them as individuals, if you're buying 90 of them, you put them together and you pay them over the 5 years of their useful life. A question was asked earlier as to the per thousand assessment, how much this equates to. The the $4.64 on this annual cost on an assessment of $230,000 is approximately 2 cents per thousand.
Thank you. On my left?
Madam Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, Cliff Sylvia, Precinct 1, member of this.
Can you come a little closer to the microphone, please? Thank you.
Cliff Sylvia, Precinct 1, member of the Wareham School Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that we can get really carried away in the detail. And I know that the devil's in the detail, but, you know, basically what the school committee is proposing is that we, town meeting, hopefully send a message to the Board of Selectmen to put this article on the ballot so that the people in town can voice their opinion on whether or not they feel that this has validity. It's no more complicated than that. Yes, there will be people in this room that say, well, maybe we don't need the $341,000. But the reality is, and I don't think there's anyone in this room that can debate this, the reality is that we are now reaping the benefits of minimum school spending on below minimum school spending for years. We are now reaping the benefit. We have our backs up against the wall because discretionary spending in the school department budget is almost non-existent. It's almost all of it going to fixed costs and salaries and benefits. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thought that Mr. Heath of the Finance Committee put it beautifully in his opening statement. At this town meeting, the can we kick is now a tangible item, the education of our kids. All we're asking...
Ladies and gentlemen, please hold your applause.
All we're asking is a mandate from this group assembled here tonight to put these articles forward on the ballot.
20 seconds.
Ladies and gentlemen, I urge you to support this. This, in this particular article, Article 20, is another prime example of a non-funded mandate. The mandates come down from Boston, and we do not have the ability to pay for these mandates. There is nothing sneaky here. There is nothing that is deceitful. It is open and above boards. We have to replace used textbooks, textbooks that we don't even have in some classes. I know for a fact that we have social studies classes at the high school that don't even have books.
Time, Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you please support these override articles so that we can get it on the ballot and let the voting public determine whether they have merit or not. Thank you.
On my left. And ladies and gentlemen, if I might ask that we only have 2 at a microphone, and that's to keep the aisles from becoming blocked for fire reasons. On my left.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Margaret Ishihara. I just wanted to follow up on a point that Mr. Sylvia sort of answered. And that would be, if it's up to the Board of Selectmen to decide whether these various overrides go on the ballot or not, my question to the Board of Selectmen is, what is your intention? Are you going to wait to see what happens here? You've already voted, evidently, unfavorably on this particular article. But I'm just wondering, what is your intention? If, for instance, this article passes here, does that change your mind? Do you look at that as advisory? What's your point of view? I want to put that in your court.
Mrs. Ishihara, you're welcome to answer, and it will be up to the board as to whether they wish to answer the question.
The answer is that the Board of Selectmen is not currently in session and will not deliberate any of this information in public. Thank you.
Thank you. On my right.
Madam Moderator, my name is Victoria Miles of 3 Tinkers Lane. Yeah, I'll just do this. And yeah, so I live on Tinkers Lane. And I would urge the people in this room to consider voting against this article. And the rationale that I have for that is I know something about school textbooks. And I know that very often what happens to school textbooks is they end up in storage bins collecting mold and dust. And I know this firsthand. And if you ask any teacher that you're acquainted with, what happens to your textbooks when the school decides not to use them anymore? That's exactly what happens. Please also keep in mind that there are programs that the textbook companies offer schools which involve piloting a program. And the pilot of the program, they will give you X number of textbooks and also give you software. And so you can do online textbook with students and keep a classroom set. Gone are the days that every student needs his or her own textbook. This $341,000 is exorbitant, especially in the area and the arena of textbooks with the Common Core standards now coming out. The teachers themselves haven't even studied the Common Core standards enough to know what is and is not a good and appropriate textbook at this time. I think the textbooks can last a little bit longer until we know a little bit more about the Common Core standards. That would be my urging on the $341,000.
Thank you. Gentleman on my left.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bill Heaney, Precinct 1. Ladies and gentlemen, as I think about this article, to me it's a no-brainer, and it is a no-brainer because essentially all we're doing is allowing the treasurer to borrow $341,000 if the Board of Selectmen decides to put it on a ballot. And if, after the Board of Selectmen puts this question on the ballot, the town voters actually vote for it. Other than that, this article is moot. The treasurer cannot do anything. If we want to send a message to the Board of Selectmen here tonight about the mood of this town meeting towards the article, then I suggest that when it's time to vote in the affirmative, that we all give a resounding aye in the affirmative so that the Board of Selectmen hears this loud and clear. But I think that this article is just a simple article in and of itself, again, to authorize the treasurer to take action. Thank you.
Mr. McDonald?
Just a couple things. Well, number one, as interesting enough, we had a discussion about that today, a couple of us. The problem is, it's great to think about it being online, but you got 12-year-old technology. Something has to be done about the technology. It's absolutely atrocious. And our children are going to go into the real world later, not being technologically savvy, if you will. But this is just to authorize the treasurer to borrow in case it passes. There's things down the line, and I agree, technology is the way to go. Pilot programs is another example, but that can be trued up after the fact. We need to look at the revenue to do this. Thank you.
On my right.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Stephanie Wallace, District 3. I am a Wareham public school educator. I can assure you my textbooks have not a single speck of dust on them. However, they are falling apart due to, I'm not even sure how many students have used them. There are copyrights of books in my building that are older than I am. I, interestingly, used to work for the largest educational textbook company in the country before becoming a teacher. There are copyright laws involved with pilot programs as to their use. Schools have to qualify. Schools are chosen to participate in pilot programs. The future of education is technology. I'd love to have 12-year-old computers. I would love to. I want to know computers, period. I cannot offer online books with no computer, let alone a 12-year-old computer. And a publisher is not going to pilot a program at a school that has no technology. So, again, I know this has been mentioned over and over again. This is just so that we can send a message that this issue is important enough to be voted on by the larger general public. And I think that cannot be emphasized enough. Thank you.
Thank you. On my left, ladies and gentlemen, please. On my left.
Donna Ashley, Precinct 6. I simply want to say to the body that is here, these are our children. They are our kids, our teenagers. My son went to school for 12 years in this town, actually 13 with kindergarten. And we need to give them what they need. I don't think it's being asked, you know, our costs go up, everyone's costs go up. But I've been involved and continue to be involved with the education system in town. And there is a dire need. Without textbooks, these kids are not going to be prepared when they leave this high school in 12th grade to go on to college and to be who they can be. Let's stand behind our kids.
Thank you. Is there anything for, ladies and gentlemen, please, please. I realize it's a very passionate subject, and I'm just as passionate and understand, but there will be no applause for any speakers, either for or against. Is there anything else to be said on Article 20? On my right?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Brenda Ekstrom. I have a question for the school committee or the superintendent. If this article passes here, and even if the Board of Selectmen asked to put it on a ballot, I assume it's going to be a special election that we'll have to have for it because we'll want the money for the next fiscal year. If it fails at the ballot, I've heard the words that this is mandated, it's an unfunded mandate. What happens at that point? If it fails at the ballot and we have $341,000 that we're required to supply, will there be cuts at that point? I mean, I would think that if you have a mandate that's something that's a requirement, that should have been one of the first lines in the budget, not one of the last ones. So I'm just wondering what will happen if that happens.
Would someone like to answer the question? Dr. Rabinovich?
Yes. It is a mandate that we need these new textbooks, but if the money isn't there, we're either going to have to cut something else to get them, or we won't have them, and we'll have to live without them. So at this point, it can't be answered because it's going to have to go before the school board and be discussed further.
Thank you.
Okay, so something else will have to be cut, but we're not going to say that this was the first line. Okay, well, then just my one other comment is that I understand that everyone needs to make a living and everything, but I think that when you go in the annual report and the top 20 school department employees...
Mrs. Ekstrom, the question before us is whether or not to authorize the treasurer to have authorization to borrow. That is the question before us. That is the subject matter that we should be speaking to.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with where money should be spent? Okay,
No.
thank you. I understand. Thank you.
Gentleman on my right.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, Mark, Precinct 6 again. I just want to let everybody know that some of us are on budgets that have to approve these. Most of these articles, 18, 19, 26, 34, they're all Proposition 2.5 items, and they have to be asked, if they didn't know, for your taxes to be increased. Again, I'm new to the area. I've been up here 3 years, and I watched the value of our property go down about $40,000, and our taxes go up $400, and that's in 3 years. So, you know, I love kids, and I think it's great, and I've got grandchildren and children, and I think there's just sometimes that, you know, we might have to say no, especially in these times with people out of work and, you know, cost of increase and stuff. But we love the kids, but bottom line is all these overrides are costing a lot of money.
Thank you. Gentleman on my left.
Stan Matthews from Precinct 4. I don't want to appear to be against the textbooks, but in my mind what we're talking about are jobs here. These are operating expenses, and operating expenses include the salaries and the benefits, and et cetera. So these textbooks can be paid for within the operating expense, but it takes away from jobs. The rest of the town, as that gentleman said, I've only lived here less than 5 years, and my taxes have gone up 8%, and my value's gone, my houses have gone down much more than that. So other elements in the town have been eliminating positions, they've been reducing hours, and the school department has been enhancing their programs over the past year. So I think it's been said that things are not the way they were in the past and they can't be in the future. So I think the school department needs to take another look at how they're educating the children here, and not just what they'd like to have to support the school system, but what they really need to achieve their goals.
Gentleman on my right.
Jeff Sweat, Cremisa Road. First, let's be clear how we came up with $341,000 for textbook and technology as opposed to leaving it in the operating expenses. We didn't have a choice of pulling out salaries, which is, of course, the vast majority of our operating expenses, or many other things, or utilities, et cetera. Those could not be put into a debt exclusion. Legally, it would have been inappropriate. We were advised that this is a legitimate thing to put into a debt exclusion because, in fact, it has a useful life far beyond a year or two, and it's fairly expensive. If I was sitting in this audience and I knew nothing, and I was brand new to this town, there is only one reason that I would vote against this, and that is if I thought the school was wasting money. That would really get me to say no, to make a point. And as a school committee member, and every other school committee member who voted unanimously for it, we know that we're not wasting money, and it's going to cost us, just like everybody else in this room, the 2 cents per thousand that was quoted by the chairman of the Finance Committee. So the fact is that since we have been growing for the last 12 years, the budgets that you see every year at less than 2% a year, this is not a problem of overspending. As a matter of fact, if anything, we are underspending our children because a significant percentage of that 1.8% is going to offset things that we don't control.
20 seconds. And Mr. Sweater, if I could ask you to stick to the subject matter, which is, shall we authorize the treasurer?
I urge you to support this.
Am I right?
Michelle Langford, District 4. I would just like to ask, does it really matter what we vote tonight if this is going to be on the ballot? And if we approve all this, is it going to make a difference? If it does what we do tonight, is it going to count?
It will count, and I will try to explain this again. This article is an authorization so that if the selectmen choose to put it on the ballot, and if the taxpayers of this community go to the polls and vote, and they vote in favor and pass this, then the treasurer will have the ability to go out and borrow that amount of money. Now, if the selectmen decide they want to put it on the ballot and the voters come out and they vote against it, then this treasurer will not be able to borrow. It's a contingency article. He can only borrow if this passes on a ballot question.
So why are we discussing it tonight?
Well, there's two reasons. If we don't do that, and if the selectmen choose to put these questions on a ballot, we would have to have a town meeting to come back and authorize the borrowing. So it's just to do it in advance contingent on, if the selectmen choose not to put this on a ballot,
that's what I meant.
Then this is just, it's moot. The treasurer would not be borrowing any money. Is that correct, Mr. Treasurer? That's correct.
So that was my question. If they don't put it on the ballot, then all this discussion is a waste of time?
Yes. It's not really a waste of time. It's to prevent us from having to come back and have another town meeting. Should the selectmen decide that they want to put it on the ballot and people vote in favor, we would have to have another town meeting. This is just to prevent that, because since we are having a town meeting now, we can handle it now.
I'm still not clear. If they don't put it on the ballot, okay, I really don't quite understand that, but if somebody could clarify it a little better, I'd appreciate it.
Gentleman on my left.
Look, it's been said about 4 times. I'm prepared to move the question only because how many times do you want to explain this to everybody? That's all. So I move the question.
I have a motion before us to move the question. It requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes by 2/3 vote. We now have Article 20 before us. This will require a 2/3 vote because it is a borrowing article. I will try for a 2/3 voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. It passes by a 2/3 majority voice vote. Madam Clerk. Article 21. May I have a motion?
Madam Moderator, I move that Article number 21 be voted as printed in the warrant.
May I have a second? To speak to the article? Dr. Rabinovich?
Madam Moderator, the intent of this article is to replace a current revolving fund that was authorized under Chapter 44, which allowed special education tuition that is paid by other districts to attend Wareham programs, and which we keep in a revolving fund. The problem with Chapter 44 is that all of the revolving accounts by the school department and the town that are authorized under Chapter 44 have a maximum spending cap of 1% of the prior fiscal year's tax levy. So we are asking to reconstitute this particular revolving account under Chapter 71, Section 71F, so that there will be no cap. The only cap will be on what we take in. So if we take in additional money under tuitions, then we will be able to spend that money to reduce our budget.
May I have a vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 2-1-0.
And may I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 7-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything to be said on Article 21? Selectman Bagley?
I have a couple comments about this. I don't recall seeing the Special Education Revolving Fund before town meeting in the past. I do remember seeing kindergarten revolving and pre-K. The maximum of 1%, I would really hate to see these just spent down to zero. But the other thing about moving this into Chapter 71 is this would never have to come back to town meeting. This money would be under the sole proprietary purview of the school committee. So in the effort of transparency, I would prefer that we vote this article down.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 21? Seeing no one, your vote will now come on Article 21. It requires a majority vote. We're voting to see if the town will vote to accept General Laws, Chapter 71, Section 71F, to authorize the school committee to use a revolving fund to be credited with all monies received by the school committee as tuition payments for non-resident students. The receipts held in such account may be expended by the school committee without further appropriation for expenses incurred in providing education for students. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? The motion passes. Article 49.
Point of information, please.
Please state
the
your
way
point.
that you read the warrant, it said for all non-tuition student, and the way it was explained, it was supposed to be for special ed students.
I'm sorry, that was my fault, my error. It was as was printed in the warrant.
So the explanation that he gave for special ed was incorrect? If that's true, can we have another vote? Because
It's too late. I'm sorry. You should have raised that issue
can
before.
we have a reconsideration?
No, I'm sorry. Thank you. What article are we on?
So we voted on misinformation.
49. Article 49. Yes, okay. Article 49 is a petition article. I believe we have, let me see if I can find the young woman who was the first signatory on the petition to my left. If you would give us a motion, please.
Yes, Elizabeth Barrigett, Precinct 2.
Could you speak into the microphone, please?
Elizabeth Barrigett. Madam Moderator, Article 49 is to see if the town will vote to discontinue that portion of Gray Street shown on a map on file in the town clerk's office, and further to change the purpose for which such portion is held by the selectmen from general municipal and street purposes to purposes of conveyance, and furthermore to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of said property on such terms as it deems appropriate or take any other action relative thereto.
May I have a second? I have a second. I have a second. Would you like to speak to the article, or do you wish to ask for courtesy of the floor from Mr. Rotella?
I can speak to the article, and then I was going to ask for courtesy to the floor, whichever you
the
prefer.
problem is going to be that the proponent only has 5 minutes, so I think you need to decide which one of you would like to speak to the article.
Okay.
Would you like to ask for courtesy of the floor from Mr. Rotella?
Yes, Madam Moderator, could I have courtesy of the floor from Mr.
Thank you. Mr. Rotella is not a registered voter. He is the homeowner for which this property in this article is about. I would ask for courtesy of the floor from this body to hear from Mr. Rotella. If I hear no objections, I will ask Mr. Rotella to come to the microphone and speak to his article. Hearing no objections, Mr. Rotella?
My name is David Rotella. I own a house on 23 Nanumet Street in Onset. There is a vacant piece of property behind my house, which is...
Can you speak into the microphone,
I'm sorry.
please?
My name is David Rotella. I own a house on 23 Nanumet Street in Onset. There is a vacant piece of property behind my house, which is an unimproved part of Gray Street. Purchasing the land would just give me more room with my family for cookout area, a little fire pit. All department heads, Board of Selectmen, and Finance Committee are in favor of this. Thank you.
May I have a vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action, 3-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The vote of the Finance Committee was 7-1-0.
Thank you. Is there anything to be said on Article 49? Selectman Begley?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This property happens to be in my neighborhood, so I'm familiar with Gray Street. And there are other abutters to this road. So I had asked the question of the Board of Selectmen, should, and this is when we were discussing this article previously with the proponent. And I believe, that the proponent understands that this is an automatic purchase of this property, that the Board of Selectmen would decide how the disposal of this property would be, whether it was an auction or whatever, just to make everybody clear on the matter.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 49? Mr. Camerano?
Yes, Madam Moderator. I was the person on the Finance Committee that voted against this. I have one issue about it. This piece of land that he's speaking with doesn't just, it's a long, long stretch of land. And it not only gives him, the right to use it, but all the people next to him, all his abutters, this is going to give, this person this, more or less the rights to use his land, all behind, the abutters. It's almost like a sidewalk behind everyone's land. And to me, it just doesn't, if it was just behind his land or abutted his land, I wouldn't have a problem with it, but it gives him a long stretch along the whole road. It's like a sidewalk, behind everyone's home in his neighborhood. And to me, it just doesn't seem, proper. If I was a butter, I wouldn't want it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. On my left?
George Barrett, Precinct 5. I don't recall hearing a motion on this article.
Yes, we did have a motion from Elizabeth, is it Verichek?
She read the article, but I didn't hear whether it was for favorable.
That was her motion.
Okay. And the other thing is, generally, circumstances like this, the abutters own to the center of the road. Not knowing the ownership of this road, is that how it's going to be distributed?
To answer the question? Is there anything further to be said on Article 49? On my right?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Brenda Ekstrom. Is it a private way? Just because the previous speaker from the Planning Board said if they own to the middle of it, that's only on private ways. If it's a public street. It was accepted by the town on March 6th, 1911. So it is a public way. And is there nothing on the other side of that? There are no houses or anything on the other side of Gray Street? if someone could answer the question.
To
Maybe
answer
Mr.
the
Vitale?
question?
Sure, Mr. Vitale, you could.
Alongside the property I'm looking at is all woods. As it goes up, as the gentleman said, it's a long stretch. It does abut neighbors at the other end of the street. The part I'm interested in is all woods. Should be later on down the road. I have no problem with the neighbors deciding if they want that piece of property. That's not the issue. Speaking to council, you can't just buy a section of the street. You have to buy the whole street. It's not a walkway. It's not interfering with anybody.
I think
it's
just
woods.
to answer her question, Mr. Rotella, are there abutters?
There are butters on the opposite end.
Thank you. Mrs. Ekstrom?
But none across, like where the words Gray Street says right there, on the other side, there's no property, no streets, like...
Can I answer the question? Do you
Thank
mind?
you.
To answer the question?
To answer the
Second
question, Gray Street crosses Prospect Street, and the section that's in question is Gray Street from the opposite side of Prospect Street along those three abutters. There's three abutters, and then one abutter on the opposite side of the street, and it goes out to Andrews. So the section of the street that's in question goes from Prospect Street to Andrews Street, but it's a paper road. It's grass and woods, and
Well, it's an accepted road, but
on the other side of Gray, it goes down to Maple.
Okay, so the other side, there is an abutter, but they have access from Andrews and
Prospect
and-
Street. It's from Prospect Street, the closest side of Prospect Street to Gray, through to Andrews.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 49 on my right?
Michelle Langford, District 4. Could you specify which section of Gray Street he wants to buy? It's really unclear with the maps that we're looking at. And what about all the other people that are adjacent to that street? Are they going to want to buy that land too? Are we going to eliminate that street altogether?
To answer the question, if anyone cares to. I see no one willing to answer the question.
So you can't specify which section of Gray Street we want to sell to him? Nobody knows?
Didn't I just answer that?
Selectman Bagley?
I think I tried to answer that question. Maybe I wasn't clear.
No.
Gray Street goes quite a distance, and it crosses Prospect Street. Is that up there? It crosses Prospect Street.
Is he going to buy that
To the
whole
right, where you see Gray Street, isn't really a street. It's grass and then woods towards Andrews. So Gray Street crosses Prospect and goes that way, but this part is inaccessible and hasn't been used as, it's a paper road. Has not been used as a
I
road.
understand that. Are we selling him the whole street?
That's not what this article is it, Madam Moderator?
No, the article is to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of the property. Now, how they choose to dispose of that will be up to the board.
Okay. Given that this isn't very clear, I just don't think it's a good idea.
On my left?
Donna Hagopian Barrels, Precinct 2. You're saying that that's a paper road. I can understand what a paper road is. But if he's on this side, what's on this side? Who owns that land? Is that buildable property that road could be used? I mean,
To answer the question?
What side, where is he on this Gray Street?
It's a very small, this is very small road. But on Gray Street, there are three properties. So there's a total of 3 lots, 2 on one side and 1 on the other, but they've already got homes on them, and there are no buildable lots. Those would be grandfathered, the size of the lots there. It's onset. It's Nanumet Heights.
Madam Moderator. I'm familiar with Nantucket Heights. It just, Madam Moderator, through you, I would like to ask where he sits on this road.
To answer the question.
That's what we're not seeing.
Okay.
Where is he?
Maybe Mr. Rotella could identify exactly where his property is. To answer the question, Mr. Rotella.
As we're looking at the map, it looks a lot bigger than, as we're looking at the map, it looks a lot bigger than it is, as Ms. Bagley said. There's actually myself and two abutters. If you see where the word street is above Gray, to the right of Gray, my house is approximately, is right above where the word street is. My property runs from street all the way to just after Gray. Before Gray, there is a house on the left and the right of the word Gray. Like I said, the street is only 20 feet wide. It looks a lot bigger than it is. There's only myself and the two abutters.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Mrs. Barrows?
Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen, on my right?
Mike Flaherty, Precinct 1. I move the question.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion before us to move the question. It does require a two-thirds vote. I will try for unanimous. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
It passes by a two-thirds voice vote. The Article 49 is now before us. Because this is giving up an interest in land, it will require a two-thirds vote. So the article before us is Article 49, and in essence, what it is asking is to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of this property on such terms as it deems appropriate. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. It passes by two-thirds non-counted vote. Article 41.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, just bear with me 1 second. I believe, even though we're in the lottery, one of the things that we need to do is when there are interconnected articles, and Article 40, we would have to take that one first before we take Article 41. So if we could move to Article 40. May I have a motion on Article 40, please?
Madam Moderator, I move that the town vote to rescind Article 36 as voted in the spring 2011 town meeting or take any other action relative thereto.
Thank you. May I have a second? Second. Thank you. To speak to the article?
Angela Dunham, Precinct 3, CPC Chair. This article was voted in at Springtown meeting, 2011, as it says. The state funding to complete this purchase did not come through, and so what we're looking to do is to reconfigure with Article 41, the new purchase. But we need to rescind Article 36 to return the money, enabling Article 41 to be considered.
Okay, it's Article 36 of the prior town meeting.
Yes, sorry.
Not this town meeting.
Yes.
The article that we are rescinding is Article 36 from a prior town meeting.
Because the state funding did not come through, we were not able to complete that purchase.
May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 3-0-0.
And may I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 7-0-0.
Is there anyone to speak to Article 40? You coming down to speak to it now? Seeing no one, I will now call for a vote on Article 40. It requires a majority vote to rescind Article 36 as voted in the spring 2011 town meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Article 40 passes unanimously. Now we'll go to Article 41. May I have a motion?
Madam Moderator, I move to approve the article as printed in the warrant.
May I have a second? To speak to the article?
Angela Dunham, Precinct 3, CPC Chair. Madam Moderator, I'd like to turn, with your permission, turn my time over to Jesse Ferreira,
Certainly.
who would be giving information about Article 41 and the purchase of the reconfiguration of that property.
Thank you. Mr. Ferrer?
Thank you.
Hello, I'm
Mr.
Jesse.
Ferrer. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Jesse Ferrer. I live on Main Street in Wareham, and I work for the Wareham Land Trust. Before you tonight, we have a open space project for the town of Wareham to acquire along the Wewiantic River. It is very similar to last year's project, minus parcels that we had to omit because of not receiving a state grant that we had hoped for.
Can you talk right up close to
Yep.
the mic, please?
So, a vote in favor of this article authorizes our community preservation, authorizes the use of $430,000 in community preservation funds to purchase and permanently protect 20 acres of open space along the Wewiantic River. And included in the funding is monies to create a parking lot and trailhead. The location of the property is off of Blackmore Pond Road. There's a sliver of frontage that is 180 feet approximately in length and 0.13 or so of an acre, which is enough space for a parking spot and trailhead. In addition to the $430,000 we're asking for from the Community Preservation Committee, there is also a small grant in the sum of $18,000 from the Buzzards Bay Estuary Program used for the town to acquire the property. Land is ecologically important to protect as open space because it provides opportunities for outdoor recreation, including hiking, access to the river. The property along the Wewiantic River adds to a green corridor of other protected lands that we've been working on. I have some maps that show that as well. The river protects downstream water quality by preserving ecologically sensitive areas, maintains historic rural community character of Wareham, and adds to riparian corridor, which I mentioned of great open space. So the next slide, I suppose. So here's a locust map. In red is the approximately 20 acre project that we are looking to have the town acquire. And that's a good aerial of it. So to the right, on the left side of the screen, there's frontage on Blackmore Pond Road. That would be the parking lot trailhead. The eastern boundary of the property has a lot of frontage along the Wewiantic River, where the river crosses through Horseshoe Pond. And directly across from this property, on the other side of the river, is other town-owned land known as Birch Island, which has a parking lot and trail system as well. North and south of this property, you'll see residential development, and that would have been the fate, and it still is to be determined for this property. There's 9 residential house lots that could be built there. Maybe the next slide, please, Matt. So this is an existing trail on the property, and it's a good depiction of the uplands, very scenic, beautiful uplands of the property. This road was maintained by the previous owners who were doing some test wells. And
about 1 minute.
1 minute, thank you. And this we plan to incorporate into the trail system. It's a nice wide trail, so keep the bugs off you. And it does go down to the river, and we need to link it to the parking lot, which is a short link. Next slide, please. So here we are at the northeastern corner of the property looking out towards Birch Island. There is a bit of a bluff as you approach the river. If you go to the northeast section of the property, it's a more gradual slope down to the water, better access to the water. I believe there's another slide here. Okay, I was wrong. So what I ask you for tonight is a vote in favor of this project. This is to be town-owned land, open to the public, permanently protected with town ownership and a conservation restriction held by the Wareham Land Trust and Buzzards Bay Coalition.
Time.
Thank you.
May I have a vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 1-2-0.
May I have a vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 3-4-0.
Is there anything to be said on Article 41? Selectman Bagley?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I have a question. I know that I remember these discussions in the spring of 2011 on this property. And I know that the lots or the area has been reconfigured. And my question is this: has there been any testing of the soil and water of this land for any kind of toxic anything?
To answer the question?
Angela Dunham, CPC Chair. 21E was completed, and it proved that there was not a problem with the property. There was no contamination found.
So has that been publicized anywhere, like on the website, or the results of those studies?
To answer
the
the
town
question?
has the if I could have Mr. Pichette
To answer the question,
answer.
Mr. Pichette.
Mr. Pichette, would you like to come to the microphone and answer the question?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. To answer the question, the 21E assessment has been done, which I have a copy of right here. It has not been publicized on any websites or anything of that nature, but it is a public document that anybody can look at and reference if they would wish to.
Thank you.
So the results are nothing, no toxic substances whatsoever were found?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. On my right?
Sandy Slavin, Precinct 3, Chair of the Open Space Committee. I'm also on CPC. We just returned $375,000 to the CPA fund. All we're asking for is an additional $55,000 to purchase these 19-plus acres of beautiful, beautiful land. Please support the article.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 41? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for a vote on Article 41. To approve this article as printed in the warrant, it requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes by a majority. Oh, it passes by a voice. No, majority. Two-thirds. Okay, Council just advised me that it's a two-thirds vote, and it did pass by a two-thirds vote, non-counted voice vote. Madam Clerk? 45. Article 45, may I have a motion?
Mr. McDonald, you're up.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $400,000 from the Water Pollution Control Certified Retained Earnings Account for the construction and installation of a 150,000-gallon water pollution control equalizing tank.
Do I have a second? I have a second. To speak to Article 45?
Good evening, Guy Campina, Director of the Water Pollution Control Facility. I came on board in 2010, September of that year, and one of the first things that I was presented with was an odor complaint issue from the wastewater treatment facility. So I was set out about looking for where the odor was coming from, and it was from an equalizing basin that's wide open at the treatment plant behind it that gathers raw sewage. In the summer of 2011, I met at that site with the DEP, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, a representative from the neighborhood, myself, and we walked the basin and we concurred that there was odor sufficient to cause a nuisance to the neighborhood. The neighbors have been bothered for some years, I believe around 2005 with this particular project and probably before that time. I was told that it has been a continual problem, and the DEP and the Board of Selectmen Chairman and myself decided that we need to do something about it. We hired an odor consultant. We spent the entire summer, different times of the day, observing flows into this basin from the pump stations. We tried equalizing the pump stations to minimize the amount of raw sewage into the basins. We also lowered the levels, stopped the aeration, which was part of the problem, releasing the odors. We had some results, but not anything significant enough to bring relief to the neighbors. We also decided with the DEP that a equalizing basin should be covered. To cover each one of those basins, they each are 1 million gallons, was quite substantial in cost to undertake. We've tried quite a bit of chemicals, probably around $40,000 worth of chemicals to try to mitigate the problems to no effect. What I'm asking for this evening is a equalizing tank. We're going to construct to the left of these basins in an area. We're going to construct a tank that's approximately 158,000 gallons of capacity. And we're going to enclose it. We're going to connect it to our odor control system, which is some biofilters, and we're going to suck out the air, treat it to get rid of the odors. We're also going to mix it for homogeneous and also add chemicals to break down the sulfides as they enter the treatment plant to again work on the odors. I think it's time. I mean, I know that we have stepped up, assumed responsibility for this, and we want to correct it. And this is a step in the right direction. So I'm asking for your support. The money will come from the retained earnings of the Water Pollution Control Facility, approximately $2.9 million certified by the town accountant in that fund. So we're asking up to $400,000. We've actually priced it out, get quotes around averaging between $360,000 and $380,000, so we're asking for 4. Any funds not used would be returned to the retained earnings. And this will go a long ways to bring relief to our neighbors who have been patient over the years. I'm on the butt of that property. Because I work for the treatment plant, I don't call in to myself for odor complaints. But they're there, they're real, they're justified in their complaints, and I'd like to address it, and this will go a long ways to helping the problem. And so I'm asking for your support.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action, 3-0-0.
And may I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 6-0-0. The recommendation, the Finance Committee recommends favorable action for the construction and payment from the Water Pollution Control Certified Retained Earnings authorized by this article.
Thank you. Is there anything to be said on Article 5 on my right?
Lynn Burrows, Precinct 5. I think I just heard something wrong. It was my own misunderstanding. So just for clarification, I thought I heard something about it. Well, the tank will cost like $360 or $390. Is this for like several of them, or maybe I just heard it wrong? Yeah, please.
To answer the question,
yeah.
If you could go to the microphone, Mr. Campina, please.
It's actually one tank only. Why we decided on 158, we have a report from the audit consultant, environmental tech from Waltham, Mass., and they were recommended originally around 300,000 gallons because we carried that type of water in that basin, 300,000 gallons. What we've spent the summer doing, is equalizing the flows from all our pump stations. So we're able to get
Mr. Campina, to answer her question, how many tanks?
One tank.
Thank you. If you would just stand to the side, you may have another question.
Yeah. Stay right here. No, I just, when you were explaining it, I thought
Mrs. Burrows, through the moderator, please.
Okay, through the moderator. It says 2.9 million here, and I thought I heard you say something about like 360 or 390,000 for something, so that's all I was looking for.
What I said is that we're asking for $400,000. We've got an estimate of quotes, if you will, around $360,000, $380,000. In the retained earnings funds itself is $2.9 million, of which we'll draw the $400,000 from.
Okay, so we don't expect to spend anywhere near that then? That 2.9, right? It's not going to, okay. I just want to make sure that's not what we're approving here. Thank you.
No problem.
And I also just want to say that it's about time we're doing something for the people in this neighborhood. I know they've put up with a lot, and I know that right now, as we're sitting here, their neighborhood stinks to the high heaven. So it's good to move forward this. I'm sorry I sent you back, Mr. Campina, but I just want to know, is this going to solve the problem?
To answer the question,
the engineer said that this would solve 85% of the problem as the odors that we know presently. The other 15% we'll be doing with chemicals. They're on order. They'll be here, $16,000 worth coming, and that'll make it 100%.
thank you. Gentleman on my right.
Gentlemen? Oh, okay. That's not what you called me the other day. Anyway.
I called you sweetie. Gentleman on my right.
Howard Smith, Precinct 4. I am a septic hauler. I realize that the cost of this facility is going to be coming out of certain funds. I just have a short, sweet question. Is this going to affect the rates of septic going into the plant? This will affect me and my customers.
To answer the question?
Not at all.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 45? Seeing no further questions, I now will call for a vote on Article 45. It will be a majority vote. The motion before you is to transfer the sum of $400,000 from the Water Pollution Control Certified Retained Earnings account for the construction and installation of a 150,000-gallon water pollution control equalizing tank. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 22.
Madam Moderator, I move that Article 22 be voted as printed in the warrant.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I believe I heard us. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. To speak to Article 22, Dr. Rabinovich.
Yes, this is a second revolving account, the same as the first one that was originally constituted under Chapter 44. This is for kindergarten and preschool tuitions, and we are looking to reconstitute this under Chapter 71, Section 47, for the same reason, so that it will not be capped for spending. And what does cap the spending is we can only spend what comes into this. So, depending on the number of tuition students coming in and paying tuition, then we can use those funds to help pay for the salaries of the teachers that teach the kindergarten and preschool. So it is a natural cap, only the money that comes in that can be spent out.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action, 0-3-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action, 7-0-0.
Thank you. To any discussion on my right?
Point of information, is it Article 22 or Article 23? Because the kindergarten one was 23, unless I'm reading it incorrectly. And 22 was for what I'm assuming are athletic programs and stuff. No?
Article 22, to see if the town will vote to accept General Laws, Chapter 71, Section 47, to authorize the use of a revolving fund to be credited with funds received by the school committee in connection with the conduct of activities provided for under Chapter 71, Section 47, or any other activity not expressly provided for in that chapter but sponsored by the school committee in which participation is contingent upon the payment of a fee by the participant, such funds to be deposited with the treasurer.
And what you just read, Article 22, where does that say kindergarten? 23 says kindergarten.
23, hang on just one second, just let me, 23, let me just double check. 23, once we approve this account, I believe Article 23 will be to take the money out of the Chapter 44 and put it into this account. Is it? So with Article 22, we're establishing an account. And then Article 23, we're removing the funds from the old account and putting it into the new account.
Okay, because, well, all right then, Brenda Ekstrom. My concern with this is that Section 47 does not say for kindergarten. It's for athletic programs, for extracurricular activities, and I thought that the kindergarten, I thought it was a requirement. I thought that was part of the school. I understand that we do a revolving fund for it from that, but I thought that this was for athletic programs or for outside of that, not a requirement of school.
To answer the question, Dr. Rabinovich.
Madam Moderator, through you to the previous speaker. Article 22 relates to Chapter 71, Section 47. I won't read the statute to you because it goes on for a great length. To boil it down, Chapter 71, Section 47 allows for the creation of student activity accounts and allows the school committee to expend from the separate fund that would be authorized by a positive vote for the purposes of student activities.
To answer the question, Dr. Rabinovich.
And just to further clarify, under that same statute, you were allowed to have a separate revolving account for athletics and a separate revolving account for kindergarten and preschool. So with two separate accounts, both constituted under the same chapter.
Thank you. On my left?
Diane Phillips, Precinct 3. Can I ask if this kindergarten account if they have special needs children in it, which I assume they might, is it going to go to this account or to the one that we voted on before? Is there a distinction?
To answer the question?
Yes, there is a distinction. First of all, if we have special needs kindergarten children, they don't pay tuition. Their IEP allows them to attend without paying tuition. The second part of it, the other revolving account we talked about was specifically for West Academy, where we have a specialized special school 4I program for behaviorally disadvantaged middle school and high school students. And we do have some students from other districts that pay tuition to come there.
Thank you. On my left?
I was going to help out, but the question's been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on my left?
Yes, I have a question. Dr. Rabinovich mentioned that if some of these overrides and debt exclusions did not happen, the athletic programs would be canceled. Does this change that? If you're putting money into an athletic account, you need athletics.
To answer the question?
Please.
This revolving account has nothing to do with athletics. This is just for kindergarten and preschool tuitions. But to answer the question, we talked about reducing sports. We didn't mention canceling sports. So there still would be fees coming in.
Thank you. On my right?
Could I, if I could just ask, Madam Moderator, through you to Council, I know that Section 47 is about 2 pages long because I read it. I did not see anywhere in there where it said that it could be used for kindergarten. My understanding is student activities are what several of these fine people do when they do the Renaissance or they do the after-school, intramural, volleyball, those type of things. And that's what I thought student activities were. I didn't think it was an education program that we're going to take 1/13 of our required education and put it in a revolving account. I may be wrong and maybe I missed it, but I didn't see that. So if I could get Council to fill me in, thanks.
If he chooses to answer, Attorney Bowen?
Madam Moderator, through you to the previous speaker. The text of Article 22 discusses Chapter 71, Section 47, and which, if approved, would allow for the creation of a separate account for the activities contemplated under Chapter 71, Section 47. Now, and that's what the article says. Without reading the entirety of Section 47, I'll try to summarize it very quickly. It says that the school committee may supervise and control all athletic and other organizations for public school pupils. It lists expenditure. It says that expenditures by the committee for the organization of physical education, athletics, sports, games and play, apparatus, souvenir garments, facilities, yards and playgrounds, and so forth, shall be deemed to be expenditures for school purposes. It says that expenditures by the committee for making special awards for students who perform meritoriously in the fields of art, debating, distributive education, music, science, social studies, or languages shall also be deemed school purposes. It says that the school committee may, with the approval of town meeting, set up a separate account. That money may be expended from this account for the purposes enumerated in Section 47. It says that may receive student activity fees and deposit them into an interest-bearing account, which will hereinafter be known as the Student Activity Agency account. It says the school committee shall vote to set the maximum balance on the account, and it says that periodically the funds that are available in such student activity account may be dispersed. That's about the briefest summary of a section that probably goes to about 4,000 words. That's what the statute provides for.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 22? If not, we will take a vote on Article 22. The motion before us is to move Article 22 as printed in the warrant. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Passes by a majority.
Madam Moderator, point of order.
Please state your point.
We just concluded Article 22, and I know that Article 23 is related, and we've done it before. Can we maybe bypass the lottery and go to Article 23 because it's directly related to Article 22?
Mr. Sylvia, I would agree with you that it is directly related, but it's not necessary to take that one out of the lottery. If it was reverse, the issue is taking and establishing the account. The other can happen after. Thank you. Article 9. Article 9, may I have a motion, please?
Yes, Madam Moderator. I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $104,967.00 to the collective bargaining reserve account.
Do I hear a second? To speak to the article, Mr. Sullivan?
Through you, Madam Moderator, this is simply setting up a reserve for collective bargaining.
Thank you. May I have a vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 3-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 7-1-0.
Thank you. Is there anything to be said on Article 9? Seeing no one standing, we'll now call for a vote on Article 9. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor of Article 9, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes by a majority. Article 50. Article 50 is a petitioned account. If the petitioner would please make the motion.
I move that the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to release any and all right, title, or interest that the town may have, if any, in those certain local initiative program, affordable housing restrictions, attached as deed riders to those deeds recorded at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds in Book 35749, page 87, and Book 35749, page 71, effect and title to the properties located at 250 Marion Road, Wareham, Massachusetts, and 2 Beach Street Extension, Wareham, Massachusetts, are to do or act in any manner relative thereto. Such a release is to be approved in form and executed by the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Do I have a second? I have a second. Yeah, the motion is to authorize. To speak to the article?
To understand the need for this article, I need to just give a brief background as to how this came about and why it is necessary. Back in or around 2006, the Buzzards Bay Area Habitat for Humanity was approached by a representative of the town of Wareham asking if the organization would be willing to place affordable housing deed restrictions on its existing properties in order to try to get the houses counted on the town's affordable housing roll. The organization agreed, and in conjunction with Habitat's then pro bono attorney, they drafted a local initiative program, affordable housing deed restriction,
that the then volunteer president of Buzzards Bay Area Habitat for Humanity unfortunately prematurely went to the Plymouth Registry of Deeds and filed on the subject 2 properties. However, unfortunately, the restrictions required that they be accepted by the state through DHCD and the town of Wareham prior to the filing. Neither was done. The state, through DHCD, subsequently denied the restrictions, thus making the restrictions flawed, as they specifically reference DHCD and the local initiative program. And unfortunately, there's no easy way to fix the error. In order to fix the error, Buzzards Bay Area Habitat for Humanity needs to obtain releases from the state and the town of Wareham, which they have been attempting to do for some time. The state, through DHCD, has already released any and all interest they may have had, and we are now asking the town of Wareham to do the same. Once released, the Buzzards Bay Area Habitat for Humanity plans to work with the Wareham Affordable Housing Trust in establishing 2 new affordable housing restrictions, one on 250 Marion Road and the other on an onset property that Habitat also built that does not currently have an affordable housing deed restriction. 2 Beach Street Extension is no longer a Buzzards Bay Area Habitat for Humanity property, as it was sold at public auction in 2010. However, the organization still feels an obligation to correct their error. Please understand that the 2 subject properties never counted towards town's affordable housing stock, and that no CPC funds or town funds or resources were used in the development of the subject properties. The article is simply to correct the filing error.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action, 003.
And may I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action, 5-3-0.
Thank you. On my left?
Yes, my name is Mary Scasiotti. I do sit on the Zoning Board of Appeals, and this is, I hope that they would all support my comments, but I'm making them outside of that particular organization. I'm going to just read something. The proponent cites the Habitat erred in placing the deed restrictions on these homes. The Habitat did not follow proper procedures, and that these homes are not counted on the Wareham subsidized house inventory list as justification for removing the affordable deed restrictions on these 2 properties. First, while Habitat may not have followed proper procedures, Habitat did not make a mistake in placing the deed restrictions. It was done by Habitat with the clear understanding and consent of the then president of Habitat, Jack Beck. Second, the Habitat did fail in their responsibility to provide the required paperwork to DHCD to have the units included on the subsidized housing inventory list, commonly referred to as the SHI. Having the units counted in the SHI is legally immaterial. It is the deed restriction that protects the town. An example of this is in 1999, a development with 16 homes, including 4 affordable, was approved as a 40B. Income qualified buyers were selected and affordable deed restrictions recorded on the deeds at the time of sale. Later, we learned that this developer had failed in his responsibility to follow the proper procedures to include these units on the SHI. These units are not counted on the SHI to this day. I will need just a couple of more minutes, if I could.
You're more than welcome to ask. I would put how many?
A minute. If I could read this really quickly.
How much time do you think you need beyond the 30
2
seconds?
minutes.
2 minutes.
2 more minutes?
Please.
I will put this before the body. Do you wish to give Mrs. Scasiotti an extra 2 minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? You have your 2 extra minutes.
Thank you very much. In 2006, one of these affordable units was sold at market rate. The town went to court, sued the seller, the monitoring agent, and several title companies. We won $58,000. We won despite the fact the developer and others failed to follow proper procedures, and these deed-restricted affordable homes are not on the SHI. Wareham won the legal case because we lost an affordable unit. The deed restriction gave us protection. Having the units counted in the SHI is, again, legally immaterial. It is the deed restriction that protects the town. Removing the deed restrictions to these homes give away the affordable units And it's an insult to the landowners, to the volunteers, the suppliers who gave time, labor, materials, contributed to the building of these affordable homes, and to all of the people in the town of Wareham who in the past 5 years have given $190,000 in CPA funds to Habitat. And we continue to support these homes for affordability with significantly reduced tax assessments. The citizens of Wareham should not bear the burden for the Habitat having failed to follow proper procedures. Wareham needs affordable housing, and we must protect every affordable unit. And I ask, please do not give these units away. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I right?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Brenda Ekstrom. I am on the Wareham Affordable Housing Trust, although I am not here speaking on behalf of the trust. Habitat for Humanity, as the previous speaker said, it works in over 150 countries and 15 cities and towns across the United States and Canada. Most of those areas do not have the Massachusetts 40B law, yet they still provide affordable housing because that's their goal, that's their words to live by, is to provide affordable housing. These particular houses, what I would recommend to the applicant is to put other valid, affordable deed restrictions on these, and then if there are improper ones, to come back to the town and ask to have them removed at that point so that there is still another deed restriction. The particular property that the proponent spoke of, the 2 Beach Street extension, that was sold at auction, he is correct. But it was sold at auction with the deed restriction in place. So anyone who bought that property bought it knowing that there was a deed restriction. If we remove that deed restriction, it will allow a developer to take what was hard-earned and donated supplies, equipment, volunteer hours that were given to Habitat to help provide affordable housing, bought at auction from a developer for, I think it was $77,000, and that they can turn around and sell at market rate, for $100,000, $150,000, $180,000. I think $180,000 was what it was on the market for.
30 seconds.
So I urge you to vote this down. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Camerano?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Just to repeat what Brenda said, this home was sold at auction, and anyone who goes to auctions does their homework knew that it had a deed restriction. So it was bought at a lower rate because of that deed restriction. Now, Habitat Humanity dropped the ball on this, but for us to take this away is just benefiting the person who bought it at auction, and I don't believe that we should do that, and I feel you should vote this down. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 50?
Yes, I just wanted to again say that these houses were existing Habitat houses when we went to place these deed restrictions. They were already, the homeowners were already in it, and they did not count towards the affordable housing stock.
Thank you. Am I right?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Maria Galimo, Cranberry Highway. I have a more personal issue with this house. This is a house that my family was trying to purchase. They've had a loan for over a year that's been hanging out in the wind. They've been to the town, oh my God, 100 times. And many, many times they were told, well, if you do this, then yes, we will sign off. If you get the state to sign off, then we will sign off. All of these things have been done over and over and over and over. This is not a legal issue. This is a personal issue between somebody in the town and the person that happens to own the property at the time. My children and my grandchildren should not, they should not reap the benefit. I mean, they shouldn't reap the problems that the town has. They should be able to take this house and have this house. This is not a legal issue. Absolutely not.
It is a legal issue.
I urge you, please, to vote yes on this article. This is a personal issue between somebody in the town and somebody who owns this property. It's got nothing to do with my family, and they should not be penalized for this at all. Please vote yes on this article.
Thank you. Mr. Sawyer, you only have about 1 minute left.
Yeah, I just want to make one quick statement again. We are planning on doing a new valid deed restriction on 250 Marion Road and also on another property. So that our goal is to add 2 houses to the affordable housing stock of the town of Wareham. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectman Begley?
I just had a question for the proponent of the article. I was just wondering if he is currently on the board for Habitat for Humanity. And I'll wait.
No, I am not.
Just to answer the question.
Thank you. The other question is, although there's been much discussion about one of the properties, there's a property that is contained in this article that came quite as a surprise to me, and that was 250 Marion Road. That never came before the Board of Selectmen, not to my knowledge in 2 years. No one else could remember it coming before the board. The board has no knowledge of this property that we could pass on to you, the voting body. So this second property is the first time any of us saw the address was contained in this article. So I urge you to vote this down.
Thank you. Gentleman on my right.
Yes, through you, Madam Moderator. Michael LaCava, Precinct 3. If you don't mind, I'd like to read a statement that I've prepared. Good evening, citizens of Wareham, and thank you for attending tonight's town meeting. My name is Michael LaCava, and I live in Precinct 3. I am the current owner of 2 Beach Street Extension. It was hard for me to prepare this statement not knowing what would be said or not said by the opponents of this article. I have heard many rumors and false accusations. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I have been living in Wareham for over 11 years with my wife and 2 daughters who attend Wareham schools. For the past 3 years, I've been buying some of the distressed abandoned houses in this town and restoring them to new-like conditions. I'm improving neighborhoods one house at a time, putting a lot of people to work in doing so. Many people come up and thank me for cleaning up their street, which improves the value of their homes and keeps crime out. I purchased 2 Beach Street Extension at a public auction held by Habitat. I renovated the house to new-like conditions, spent a lot of money doing so, and sold it to a nice young family, Stacy and Ryan McFarland, and their daughter Lorelei, who I actually adore. The problem is they cannot take ownership because of this deed restriction that is currently on the house that we need to get released. I had nothing to do with Habitat for closing and nothing to do with this incorrect deed restriction placed on the house. This is my business. I buy houses in distress and sell them or rent them. Yes, I served on the board many years ago. It's nothing to do with what is going on. I volunteer and give my time back to many organizations like Kiwanis and so forth. As you heard from Mr. Suey, the state has already signed us a release, and we need Wareham to do the same.
30 seconds.
Yep. It appears I am caught up in some old town bad politics of one group versus another because of a former person that worked with me. There's no conspiracy here, and I purchased this home 100% legally. I just want to allow the McFarlands to be able to close on their home and be proud owners in Wareham. I ask you, please support this article and vote in favor so the McFarlands can be the rightful owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said?
Am I right? Eddie Pasevich, Precinct 1. Madam Moderator, through you, I just have a question. What was this house purchased for at auction, and what was it sold for to the family that was just mentioned by
Mr. Pasevich, I don't think that's a relative question. The question before us is to release a restriction, and I don't think asking that is relative to this question.
So, yeah, okay.
Is there anything further on my right?
Hi, Tisha Weir, Precinct 5. I have 2 questions. One, is the reason that the current purchase cannot go through is because the persons that are trying to buy it are not income qualified due to the deed restriction?
To answer the question?
No.
Okay. And then my next question would be for both of these. If we remove this deed restriction now, you're talking about putting a new deed restriction on it. On different? Only on one.
Please speak through the
So-
moderator and through the microphone.
First, you would be removing the deed restriction. How are we putting a new deed restriction on and getting people who now own the house with no deed restriction to agree to have a deed restriction on their home when now they have a home without one? Why would they sign that?
To answer the question?
We have a great relationship. Our Habitat has a great relationship with the homeowner, and they have already agreed to do a new valid deed restriction on the property.
I would suggest, unless this reads that we're substituting one deed restriction for another, that everyone vote this down, because it leaves too much open to a good relationship.
Thank you. Mr. Camerano?
Yes. Just some information. The gentleman before said that he purchased it at auction from Habitat Humanity. That's not what happened. It was foreclosed on by the bank for a mortgage. So, the Habitat Humanity, whoever they got in there, it was a mortgage sale, foreclosure.
Thank you. Am I right?
Lynn Burrows. Now, unless I don't understand much about deed restrictions, isn't it true that if we lift this, that this person can just turn around and sell it, whereas with a normal Habitat home, you can't sell it for 10 years. You have to hold on to it. So I would think that the person, that will give the person an opportunity to make a lot of money. Bought at public auction with a deed restriction. I have a problem with somebody buying this property at a public auction with a deed restriction and then selling it to somebody who can't use the deed restriction or wants it removed. And as the last gentleman who answered that woman's question walked away, he mentioned, yes, the deed restriction, but followed it up with only for 250 Marion Road. So it is not in regard to this. There will not be another deed restriction put on this. And the woman who initially lost this because, she purchased it at the low income price. The following year, okay, and I'm not sure of the price, let's say it's in the 80 to 100 range, okay? The following year, the thing is priced at over $200,000 assessed value, so her taxes go up. And then the next year, of course this is irrelevant.
Please.
$293,000 was the assessed value.
Please stick to the question before us, which is the
and I would
issue of
have a
raising the
problem.
restriction.
Somebody mentioned 2 more properties in the future through Habitat. I think we've had enough at
Mrs.
Habitat.
Burrows, you're out of line. Now, this is your second warning. When we talk to a motion, please stick to the motion before us.
To you, Madam Moderator.
Mr. Russell?
It's Irvin Russell, Precinct 6. Mrs. Moderator, Madam Moderator, I would ask for a parliamentary inquiry as to the possibility of dividing the question.
We could if we wanted to, Mr. Russell, but I don't see the purpose in it, honestly, and I'm going to rule against it.
My basic concept is that there's an innocent victim commingled into this jargon that exists in this motion. And rather than to cause them further harm and suffrage, I would ask that we divide.
I'm denying your motion. I'm denying it.
Okay, well,
Mr.
I would
LaCava, you
ask.
abused your time. Before we go any further with this, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting to the hour of 10 o'clock. And before everybody starts to get up and walk out, I have 2 things that I need to ask for. If we want to continue with discussion on this article, we're getting close to 10 o'clock. We should need a motion to go beyond the hour of 10. But we also have one other issue that's been brought to my attention by the town accountant, and that's an issue with Article 10. And I would like to take that up for reconsideration before we adjourn so we can do it on the same night. So I would like to ask that I would entertain a motion that we go beyond the hour of 10 to conclude Article 50 and also to reconsider Article 10 because of an issue that the accountant has brought to our attention. Have a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, I'm not sure. On my right. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you're leaving, do it quietly. We still have people that are speaking to the motion. On my right.
Sorry. September McCarthy, Precinct 1.
Please speak into the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, please, quietly.
September McCarthy, Precinct 1. I just have a question regarding where exactly 250 Marion Road is, because when I do a Google search on it, it's Cranberry Cottage.
I believe the property is next door. Ladies and gentlemen, please, it's a little difficult for me to see who is actually standing with everybody moving around. I believe on my right.
Really? That would be me?
Mrs. Donahue.
Thank you. Jane Donahue, Precinct 3. I'd just like to bring everybody's attention back to Ms. Scarziotti's very succinct argument as to why we should not lift this deed restriction, and I would respectfully request that we not lift that you vote in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman on my left.
Madam Moderator, Cliff Sylvia, Precinct 1. I'd like to move the question.
We have a motion before us to move the question. It requires a 2/3 vote. I will try for majority. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes by a voice majority. The vote now will come on Article 50. As it is before you on the screen, it does require a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The motion fails a majority. Now, I would like to reconsider Article 10, and I'm going to have our financial analyst explain the issue that we have before us that needs to be corrected.
Through you, Madam Moderator, thank you. On Article 10, the issue is where you see at the top under appropriate, the appropriation should be listed as $6,007,304. And it's really, the issue is the technicality of the term appropriate, that if we did do the full 6.5, even though it adds up to that, but if you listed it in that amount, we would technically be raising more money than that. You'd be including the $513,000. So I would beg the indulgence of the body to change that number in the motion to $6,007,304. Thank you.
I have a motion and second to reconsider Article 10 to change it to $6,707,304. I will now call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting to a specific date and time. I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting to the same location for next Monday evening at 7 o'clock.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to turn in your cards. Please bring back your warrants with you, and I commend you on your behavior.